4.7.
So, could you tell us a bit about the 4 pieces of art and explain the ideas that they're somehow communicating?
OK, let's start with the frog. It's called Kobe Frog, and it's by the Dutch artist Florentine Hofmann. And it's an enormous, inflatable, 10 metres high object. And it was made in 2011 for a particular place, the roof of the Museum of Art in Kobe in Japan. And Kobe was the site of a very severe earthquake in 1995.
Yes.
And the frog is wearing a party hat, and it sits very close to the edge of the roof. The artist says that it's about enjoying life and having a flexible attitude in times of disaster. I'm not sure whether the people of Kobe would agree with that. Next we come to the stones. This is a work called Blaenau Festiniog Circle. Blaenau Festiniog is the name of a town in Wales, and this work is by the artist Richard Long, and it was in an exhibition of his called Heaven and Earth. And what Richard Long does is that he spends months of the year walking through different landscapes, and he creates art out of the things he finds there. His main theme is the relationship between art and landscape, and here he has created a beautiful, harmonious arrangement of different local stones that he's chosen. And what he wants to do is to make people stop and look and realise how beautiful the countryside, and in this case the stones, also can be. Then we come to the cot, and this is a modern sculpture by Mona Hatoum, and it's called Incommunicado. And at first sight you might think it was a baby's cot. It doesn't look like a modern cot, but it looks as if it might be a hospital cot from, say, 50 years ago. But when you look at it a bit more closely, you notice that there's something strange about the bottom of the cot, where the support for the mattress should be. And in fact, it's a series of very sharp wires. Mona Hatoum is a Palestinian artist who was born in Beirut, but she was exiled from her homeland to London. And I think if we ask ourselves what her idea might be, well, it's a cot, and a cot is normally a protective bed for a baby, where a baby will be safe. But this cot is the opposite of that. So if you got into this cot, instead of being safe, you'd be seriously damaged or seriously injured. I think this cot is a kind of metaphor for the idea of the state, the country that should look after you, your mother country or your fatherland. But in an extreme political situation, instead of being safe or being at home, you feel threatened because of political oppression. And I think probably that's the metaphor that she's making here. Finally, there's Pharmacy. This is an installation by Damien Hirst, and it occupies a whole room. If you were in an art gallery and you suddenly walked into this room, you might almost think you'd walked into a real pharmacy by accident. But if you start looking, you'll start seeing things which look strange. For example, there are 3 little stools, the kind of stools you use to reach up to higher shelves. And on top of each one is a bowl with honey in it. And if you look up, suspended from the ceiling, there is a kind of machine for killing insects. And there are 4 old-fashioned apothecary bottles, which originally were in pharmacies because they were meant to represent the elements of earth, air, fire and water, but which you wouldn't often see in a pharmacy today. So what could the idea be about here? Well, most of Hirst's works, like the work of many artists of the past, are about life and death. The honey attracts flies to come in or other insects, but they end up zapped in the insectocutor, the killing machine. Drugs, medicines, to us represent healing, so people might come into a pharmacy to get better. But even if you spend thousands of pounds on drugs, in the end you, like the flies, will die. But we also have the full bottles, which are the 4 primary colours, the the tools, the materials of the artist. And I think he's also saying that art, like drugs, can cure, can heal, if not the body, then the spirit.
4.8.
Now, this is all very fascinating, but my problem is that I don't think I could ever have got there by myself. I needed you, an expert, to explain these works of art to me. Whereas if I went to a gallery to see normal paintings or sculptures, I could probably enjoy them without needing to have them explained to me. What do you think?
Well, I disagree there. I don't think you do need an expert to explain them to you, actually.
OK.
In any case, with modern sculpture and installations, there's normally some interpretation on the walls, so you can read about it if you want to.
Right.
But I think if you're going to go to a gallery to see modern sculpture and installations, and perhaps a lot of modern art in general, the best way is to go with someone else or with a group of people and to talk about the work, to ask each other questions about the things you see. And very often you find that by asking questions and coming up with the answers, you can get much more out of it. You know, even though it may not look like the kind of art that you're used to, you have to believe that the person who made it is an artist or was an artist, and that they have things to say, and it's your job to find out what they might be.
Don't you think, then, that they're making you work much harder to enjoy their works than artists did in the past?
Actually, no, I don't, because plenty of other works are just as elusive. You know, abstract art or sculpture, many old master paintings where you don't actually understand the symbolism. There's always more to understand.
OK, so then, in that case, do you think artists today want to make you think? They don't just want to create something of beauty?
I think they always have done. They have ideas and feelings, and they want to give form to them. And actually, I think many people would find Richard Long's stones beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And other people might think that Mona Hatoum's cot is beautiful. Maybe not exactly a beautiful object, but a beautiful and rich idea.
Okay.
Beauty can be a beautiful landscape or a portrait of a beautiful person. But I think it can also be a beautiful idea.
Thank you so much, Ghislaine, for coming in and talking to us today. I'm sure our audience will be entering the galleries now.
4.9. 1.
It doesn't look like a modern cot.
2.
It looks as if it might be a hospital cot from, say, 50 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
3.
But when you look at it a bit more closely, you notice.
4.
But if you start looking, you'll start seeing things which look strange.
4.10. 1. Computer.
Picture, sculpture, architecture, capture, culture, feature, furniture, future, leisure, measure, nature, pleasure, signature, structure, temperature, texture, treasure.
2. Tourist.
Allure, endure, immature, impure, obscure, secure, sure.
4.13. 1.
To his father's amazement, the teenage Wolfgang painted a Picasso in a couple of hours. 2. Within days, he told her that he was an art forger. 3. They married about a year later, and he took her surname. 4. His greatest gift was the ability to look at a painting and, in just a few minutes, figure out exactly how the painter did it.
5.
Titanium white, which was not in general use until the 40s.
6.
He should be free by the end of the year.